An evolutionary psychologist spent months interviewing over 500 prostitutes. This wasn't a social experiment. He wasn't trying to spark a moral debate. He only wanted one thing: to uncover the raw truth about female desire. Most men would never even dare to ask this question, because if you discover what really triggers desire in a woman, you'll realize something uncomfortable. Almost everything you do to impress her doesn't work. The study, published in Evolution and Human Behavior, revealed a number that's impossible to ignore. During the fertile phase of their menstrual cycle, these women earned up to 29% more per shift. Same body, same makeup, same technique, nothing visible changed. And yet, men paid more. They felt stronger desire, without even knowing why. The explanation? Biology, but not textbook biology. This was biology as a hidden tool of power. Machiavelli wouldn't need to see the charts. He would understand it instantly, because he knew the truth about human nature. Humans are animals driven by appearances, instincts, and hierarchy. And above all, he understood this. Anyone who doesn't understand the invisible rules will always be controlled by them. This video isn't about science, it's about advantage. Because understanding female desire doesn't just make you more attractive. It pulls you out of the line of invisible men and puts you in control. Attraction is not a reward for being nice. It's not a medal you earn through emotional effort. Attraction is an unconscious reaction to signals most men don't even realize they're sending. And when you don't understand those signals, when you ignore the real language of desire, you're playing a game you're already losing without even noticing. This video isn't for men who want to be liked by everyone. It's for men who are tired of being ignored by everyone. For men who are ready to see desire the way Machiavelli would, not as emotion, but as a strategic battlefield. Today you'll learn what he understood centuries before science confirmed it. Desire is power, and the man who knows how to trigger it never has to beg for it. The study of the 500 prostitutes was only the beginning. What it revealed is as disturbing as it is simple. Female desire is not constant. It changes with her biological cycle. During her fertile days, the same women earned more money, attracted more clients, and, without doing anything different, triggered more desire. Outside that period, the magnetism vanished, as if some invisible force had been removed from the air. This wasn't intuition. They analyzed 5,300 work shifts, hard data, real science. And here's the most shocking part. The women who used hormonal birth control, meaning they didn't experience a natural fertile cycle, showed no change at all. Their market value stayed flat, same beauty, same attitude. But without fertile biology, there was no increase in desire. The conclusion is so brutal that many men would rather deny it. Female desire doesn't respond to what you do. It responds to what you are, biologically. And this is where Machiavelli enters the story, because while you're trying to convince her with words, he would be watching the chessboard. And the moment he sees desire appear without logic or warning, he'd simply say, "Human nature rarely changes, but the one who understands it dominates those who don't." During the fertile phase, a woman's brain becomes more sensitive to very specific signals: high testosterone facial symmetry, dominant posture, deep voice, compatible body scent. This isn't preference. This is automatic response. Her limbic system, the oldest, most emotional part of the brain, activates a different filter, and you are being evaluated without realizing it. Your intention doesn't matter. What you say doesn't matter. Because she doesn't choose what she feels. Her body decides first. And if, at that moment, you emit the right signals, desire flows toward you. If you don't, you become invisible. Most men still believe they can win a woman through good conversations, empathy, flowers, small thoughtful gestures. But that's like playing chess using the rules of a children's board game. You're in a biological game, and you're trying to win using emotional tools. Machiavelli wouldn't sit there listening to your poems. He would study what signals awaken power, what traits communicate advantage. And then he would act like he's already desired, because he knows desire feeds on perception, not neediness. Men offend the ones they love more than the ones they fear. And here's another uncomfortable truth. Women can respect you without desiring you, but they cannot desire you without perceiving power. Imagine two men, both attractive, successful, intelligent, but one arrives trying to please. The other walks in expecting nothing and simply observes. The second one, without saying a single word, communicates value. The first one, even if he says everything right, communicates lack. Why? Because female desire isn't built on logic, it's built on signals, and those signals are invisible. until you learn how to see them. This brings us to one of the most Machiavellian lessons about desire. The man who understands the biological language of attraction never depends on emotional luck. Do you know what that means? It means you'll never again have to wonder if she likes you. You'll be able to read her biology with your eyes, and you'll know exactly when to move forward and when to pull back. Desire is not a feeling you can build from nothing. It's a biological spark, and if you understand the hidden machinery behind it, you can learn how to trigger it. But if you keep believing that winning her is about luck, that one day the right woman will magically appear, you will live like millions of men live, frustrated, confused, trapped inside a romantic myth. This chapter is not about making women fall in love. It's about tearing away the veil of ignorance, the same veil that has kept so many men dependent on female validation. Because once you understand that attraction is an automatic response, you stop begging. You are either the correct stimulus or you are nothing. And that, as Machiavelli would know, is not cruelty. That is power. Walk toward her. Say nothing, just approach. Before you speak a single word, she is already evaluating you. Not by your clothes, not by your resume, but by what your body is screaming without you realizing it. The tilt of your shoulders, the rhythm of your breathing, the firmness of your eye contact, or how fast you look away. Your body language is an ancient communication system, sharpened by millions of years of evolution. And hers is designed to read it in milliseconds. And here's the most brutal part. You can't consciously control it. Because your body does not transmit what you want. It transmits what you believe. If deep inside you feel inferior, your physiology will expose it, even if you smile. If you feel worthy, powerful, centered, that will project outward, even in silence. This is where most men lose. They try to say the right things, but their energy already delivered the verdict. Machiavelli warned about this 500 years ago. Appearance is everything. Men judge by what they see, not because they are shallow, but because the human brain is designed to survive, not to deeply analyze every stranger it meets. In other words, a woman's judgment of you is fast, intuitive, and ruthless. She doesn't need to know who you are, she only needs to feel something. And that feeling decides everything, whether the conversation opens or shuts down, whether she sees you as a man or just another shadow. And here's the disturbing part. Most men react to that evaluation with anxiety. They change how they speak. They soften their voice. They adjust their personality. They lower their gaze, all in the name of pleasing her, all in the name of not making her uncomfortable. But what they don't realize is, every one of those adjustments kills attraction instantly. A woman's body doesn't desire from compassion. It desires from hierarchy. And the man who constantly adapts, who molds himself like emotional clay, is sending a powerful unconscious signal. I'm below her. Want to know how she identifies that? Not through your words, but through your pause before speaking, the way you laugh after she laughs, the way you rush to fill silence because you're afraid of losing her attention. Every gesture matters. Every micro-expression speaks louder than your sentences ever will. Machiavelli would understand it like this. Whoever controls perception controls the relationship. That's why true power isn't in what you say. It's in what you project without speaking. And you don't project what you pretend to have. You project what you carry inside. A 2016 study at the University of Texas revealed something disturbing. Women could detect hormonal variations in men just through body scent, without seeing him, without hearing him, just through his biological essence. That's brutal, because it confirms something most men don't want to accept. You are being examined by sensors you don't control. And you know what else it reveals? The value you communicate doesn't depend on what you own. It depends on what you radiate from your core. Let me tell you something you won't forget. A young assistant once approached Machiavelli with a question. How can I earn the respect of powerful men? Machiavelli didn't answer with advice. Instead, he took him to a diplomatic meeting and didn't allow him to speak, only observe. When they left, Machiavelli said, "Did you notice how that man never raised his voice, yet everyone listened to him? He didn't gain authority, he transmitted it." That is the power of nonverbal presence. And in female desire, that power is law. This is where many men fail. They try to fake confidence. They rehearse lines. They practice postures. They imagine secure gestures. But the body cannot hold a mask for long. Tension exposes it. Fake confidence betrays it, because what truly works is what's real. And if you want to communicate power, you must become the kind of man who doesn't need to prove it. Machiavelli would tell you this: you can't control everyone, but you can control your perception. And in the game of desire, that perception is the entire chessboard. When a man enters a room without seeking validation, without asking for permission, without needing attention, his presence speaks before his mouth ever opens. And when that energy combines with aligned biological signals, desire appears as something natural, not as a conquest, but as a consequence. Because female desire is not born from your achievements, it is born from your signals. And if you don't learn how to control them, you are condemned to be ignored without ever understanding why. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you, love yourself. He would tell you, make yourself worthy of being feared, because respect comes before desire. And if you understand that, you've already started stepping out of the darkness. There's a myth that has destroyed the self-esteem of millions of men. A myth repeated in songs, movies, motherly advice, and relationship magazines. If you're good enough, she'll value you. But there's a truth no romantic wants to accept. Kindness does not create desire, and worse, sometimes it kills it. Here's the pattern. He's attentive, generous, always available. He listens to her, supports her, protects her. He becomes her confidant, her therapist, her emotional driver. And one day she drops the deadly sentence, "You're amazing, but I only see you as a friend." And he doesn't understand it. He genuinely doesn't understand it. Because he did everything right. Because he was the opposite of the idiot she can't stop going back to. And here is the mistake: confusing morality with power. Machiavelli was clear. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Why? Because love based on need is fragile, but respect based on power lasts. The good man acts from the desire to be accepted. The man who triggers desire acts from his center. He doesn't try to please. He doesn't beg to be chosen. He already chose himself. When a man bases his value on being useful, he is negotiating desire in exchange for approval. He becomes an emotional servant. Someone who deserves affection, but doesn't ignite fire. And here's the Machiavellian part. Women don't feel guilty rejecting the good man, because biologically, they are not designed to desire a man who signals neediness. Harsh? Yes. Unfair? No. Natural. Attraction is not built through sacrifice. It is built through the perception of value. And value is not communicated by giving everything. It's communicated by showing you don't need to give anything. Think about this. What do the men she chases all have in common? They're not always more handsome. They're not always richer. But they all share one thing. They are not available to everyone. Machiavelli would see it like this. Power is preserved by creating distance. What is too close becomes ordinary. What is scarce becomes desirable. The good man is always there, always replies, always waits. That doesn't make him valuable. It makes him predictable. And the human mind does not desire what it can get without effort. Want to see it in action? A man asks a woman out for weeks. She tells him she's not ready. Days later, she meets another man. He barely talks to her, but his presence fills the room. She chases him, thinks about him, looks for him. The first man was good. The second man was magnetic. Because desire doesn't reward sacrifice, it rewards position. This is not about stopping being a good man. It's about stopping being weak. Because when your kindness is born from the fear of not being loved, it isn't virtue, it's passive manipulation. Desire doesn't respond to favors, it responds to presence, to certainty, to magnetism. And that presence only appears when you stop building your identity around her. But there's something even more perverse. Many good men hide resentment. After being rejected, they become cynical. They say things like, "Women only want jerks. Being nice is useless. The problem is, I'm too noble." But that isn't self-awareness. That's avoidance. Because deep down, they weren't rejected for being good. They were rejected for being needy, inconsistent, overly emotional, and without leadership. If you want to stop falling into this pattern, you need to do what Machiavelli advised princes. Don't be cruel unnecessarily, but when you do act with force, do it with intention. And don't apologize for the power you use. Applied to desire, that means don't hide your interest, but never give it away too early. Make your presence cost something, your energy, your time, your attention. Because being good isn't the problem. The problem is using goodness as a strategy so they desire you. And that, as Machiavelli knew, is a weakness that always gets punished. There's a question no one says out loud. Why do some women feel drawn to a man who does nothing special, while other men get ignored completely, even if they're equal or even better? The answer isn't in his looks, not in his bank account, not in what he says, it's in what he radiates. What awakens desire in a woman isn't what you claim you have, it's what she perceives without you ever saying it. And that brings us to the most dangerous concept of all, unconscious value. That magnetism you can't fake with logic. That feeling of, there's something about this guy, she can't explain it, but it pulls her in. Science has already confirmed this. Women can detect your testosterone level through body scent. They can perceive dominance just by looking at your resting face. Women can read your body language like it's an ancient language, one their biology has been understanding for thousands of years. And they read it in seconds, long before you even think about what to say. This is where Machiavelli would take notes with surgical precision. Because he understood something most men don't. Power isn't based on titles or speeches. It's based on how people react to your presence. The man who becomes feared without being hated dominates without needing violence. In the world of desire, that translates into this. A man with unconscious value doesn't need to chase validation. He triggers it. So how do you build this invisible value? You can't buy it. You can't learn it from books. It is built from the inside out, from the psychological, emotional, and physical structure that projects, I'm complete, with you or without you. That isn't arrogance. That is emotional independence. And emotional independence is attractive. Most men believe female desire is born from what you do, but actions only work after you've already projected what you are. You can tell her she's beautiful, but if you say it from neediness, it feels like desperate flattery. Say it from your center, and it feels like free validation with no hidden agenda. A classic Harvard experiment showed something powerful. People trust speakers more when they use long pauses and control their tone than those who speak fast, trying to convince. Why? Because calmness communicates dominance. And it's the same in attraction. Slow movements, comfortable silence, steady eye contact. That is biological power in action. And her body knows it, before her mind even processes it. Imagine two men walking into the same room. One smiles nervously, searching for approval with every look. The other enters without needing anything. No rush, centered. She doesn't know either one, but her body already chose, because she didn't choose with logic. She chose with instinct. Here's the paradox. The more you try to impress, the less you impress. The more you need to be liked, the less you're liked. Because desire doesn't flow downward in the hierarchy. It flows toward what appears self-sufficient. Machiavelli would summarize it like this. There is no greater signal of power than strategic indifference. And that doesn't mean ignoring her. It means you don't depend on her reaction to hold your identity together. She is not the prize. She is the reflection of your energy. When you stop chasing approval and start observing how your energy changes the dynamic, the game transforms. You're no longer trying to get in. You're deciding who gets access. And that, dear viewer, is not achieved through techniques. It is achieved through transformation. What you emit without realizing it is what truly seduces her or pushes her away. That's why most men fail. Not because they don't have what it takes, but because they haven't aligned their body, their mind, and their presence with what they're already worth. Your value doesn't need to be explained. It only needs to be felt. And when you truly reach that point, you don't need to talk so much. She already heard everything she needed to know before you even said a single word. In every attraction dynamic, there is an invisible war. It's not about who is more attractive, it's about who reacts more. And the one who reacts more loses. Most men live like emotional thermometers. If she replies fast, they feel safe. If she takes time, they panic. If she acts cold, they become desperate. If she comes back, they get hopeful again. Their entire emotional world revolves around someone else's temporary approval. And that isn't just need, that is weakness. Machiavelli would never tolerate that, because he knew this. A man who moves at the emotional rhythm of others is easy to manipulate. The man who depends on another person's will never own his destiny. Female attraction is cyclical. There are days she is more receptive, days she shuts down for no obvious reason. Not because she changed her mind, but because her biology and emotion move in waves, not straight lines. The man who doesn't understand this suffers. He thinks every shift in her mood is his fault, so he reacts by trying to compensate. More attention, more messages, more gestures. Result? He exhausts her, he wears her out, and he becomes a reactive man. But the man who keeps his center becomes something else. Still, unbreakable, impossible to shake. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he does not react with anxiety. When she gets cold, he doesn't collapse. When she pulls away, he doesn't chase. When she comes closer, he doesn't inflate his ego. He stays the same. Not because he doesn't care, but because he understands. The only way to be desired is to inspire stability. There's one line that defines all of this. Calm in the middle of chaos is what separates the average man from the man who dominates. The man who holds his posture, even in uncertainty, transmits an energy that cannot be faked, internal authority. A real example, a man meets a woman and feels an instant connection. She seems interested, until she starts pulling away. He doesn't question her, he doesn't complain, he doesn't insist. He continues living his life. He posts his projects, he moves forward. Weeks later, she returns, not out of guilt, but out of curiosity. Because her distance wasn't treated like an attack. It was answered with firm silence, and that intrigued her. Now think about the men women never forget. They're not the men who begged the most. They're not the men who were always available. They're the men who, even with desire, kept their center, because that creates something deeper than instant attraction. It creates respect, and respect, over time, turns into desire. Machiavelli taught this in politics, but it applies the same in relationships. A prince should not lose his composure because of the movements of his people. He must remain firm until order returns in his favor. Do you see it? It's not about not feeling, it's about feeling without losing structure. And structure is what most men don't have. They are trained to operate from reaction. But if you want to play at a higher level, you must become the man who doesn't need to rush, because he controls the tempo. She may test you, she may distance herself, she may provoke you, but if you don't fall into the game, if you stay on your axis, she will return. Because stable energy is addictive to female biology. This is not about manipulation, it's about mastering yourself. And that, as Machiavelli knew, is what turns a man into his own king. There is a comfortable lie millions of men still believe, that women choose who they desire. That if you say the right words, if you're kind, consistent, considerate, you will awaken that desire. But reality is far more brutal and also far more freeing. Female desire isn't chosen, it is felt. And the most shocking part is this, even she doesn't know why. During her hormonal cycle, a woman passes through phases that completely change her attraction filter. There are moments when she seeks stability, connection, tenderness. But at her fertile peak, her body screams for something else. Strong genetics, power, instinctive security. It's not a whim, it's a biological algorithm of natural selection. And it works the same today as it did 10,000 years ago. This was perfectly understood by psychologist Jeffrey Miller when he studied 500 prostitutes. During their fertile window, they generated 29% more income per shift. They didn't change clothes, they didn't improve their technique. They weren't nicer. So what changed? Their internal chemistry, and even though neither they nor their clients knew why, the money spoke. Machiavelli would have smiled seeing those numbers, because to him, anything that cannot be controlled can be used. The one who understands invisible forces doesn't need visible force. And that is exactly what you're learning right now. Attraction is not logic. It is not a reward. It is a response. This is where many men fall into frustration. They think, so nothing I do matters. So I have no control. But the answer is smarter than that. You can't control female desire, but you can position yourself as the man who activates it. That is what separates the strategic man from the reactive man. One gets angry at reality, the other studies it. One wants to be desired for who he is. The other learns how to project who he needs to be, to activate the internal codes that already exist inside her. You are not creating desire. You are provoking a reaction that her body already recognizes. Biology doesn't ask permission. She doesn't desire you because of a moral decision. She doesn't choose you because of your sad story, your sacrifices, or your romantic effort. She desires you when you emit signals of power, emotional dominance, and perceived reproductive value. And if you don't emit those signals, it doesn't matter how much you love her. It doesn't matter if you would give everything for her. Desire does not respond to sacrifice. Imagine a fire. It doesn't matter how much you beg it to burn. It only ignites if you have the right fuel. And you are the same. You don't need to convince her to desire you. You need to become the spark that her biology cannot ignore. And this is what you must understand. It's not personal. It's biological. It's not that she rejects you out of cruelty. It's that her body didn't receive the right message. And here is your power. Learning how to send that message. 95% of men will never do it. They will keep repeating the same patterns, waiting for luck, blaming feminism, modernity, or superficiality. But not you. You are listening to this. And that gives you an advantage millions will never have. Because once you understand this, the game stops being an emotional roulette and becomes a strategy of positioning. And that's where Machiavelli would be proud. Because you're no longer waiting to be chosen, you're learning how to become the stimulus that her body cannot ignore. Most men live inside an illusion. They believe female desire is a prize for good behavior, a reward for being correct, for trying harder, for being the ideal guy. But if you made it this far, you already know the truth. Desire isn't logical, it's biological, and a woman's body does not respond to your intentions. It responds to your signals. Everything you've lived through until now, rejections, friendships with no future, connections that died for no reason, they weren't punishments. They were messages. Messages your ego ignored, but your subconscious recorded. Every time you were too available, every time you replied instantly, every time you believed kindness would be enough, you were losing ground without even realizing it. Now you know. Value is not begged for, it is communicated. Not with words, but with posture, with energy, with direction. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. Power is not imposed by shouting. Power installs itself like a presence that doesn't need to explain itself. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And we're not talking about literal fear. We're talking about the respect that's born when a man doesn't collapse without approval. Because in the end, this war is not against women. It's against your need to be accepted, against your addiction to reacting, against your fear of rejection. The man who wins this war isn't the strongest physically. It's the man who can walk alone without losing direction. It's the man who doesn't need attention to feel valuable. It's the man who already decided to become his own source of validation. Today you saw how biology and power converge in the same place, and that place is you. So the next time you ask yourself why it didn't work with her, stop looking outward, look inward. Because in this silent game, the one who wins isn't the most noble. The one who wins, is the man who radiates value without asking permission. Subscribe if you want to learn more codes like these. Share this video if you know someone who needs to hear this today. And remember, desire is not requested, it's triggered, and power is projected.